I believe in you. I believe in the simple things and everything you do. I believe in the heavens above, and I believe in truth. I believe in the love we have, because I believe in you. So tell me, do you feel the way that I feel? And tell me, would you give what I'm willing to give? And I believe in honesty, and I believe it's true. And I believe if you set it free, it will come back to you. And I believe the things were meant to really be. And I believe in the love we have, because I believe in you.
Hey everybody, welcome to UCY.TV, Cancer Kickers. Vince Easley standing in for J. Cynthia Brooks. My guest today is Daniel Louis Crupmton. Great guy, man. We're going to have a good conversation. I'm going to throw some curveballs at him, but I bet you he's a pinch hitter. So I'm going to dedicate this show out. I made a post on my Vince Easley Facebook page and got a little conspiracy theory type that's thrown out there. Of course, that falls in logical fallacies. But an anchor, my conscience, Connie, that from back in school days, she's what I like to call a normal person. So I do have some anchors, what I like to call anchors. I have a very wide variety of opinions and information that I look at. I try to remain outside of a confirmation bias. But of course, that's probably sometimes hard to do. So, Connie, this show is dedicated to you, and I think what I'd like to do is throw that curveball at Daniel. I think he's got a bird over there.
Yeah, you hear Grace, huh?
I do. Is that a parrot?
It's a parakeet.
Oh yeah. Tell her I said hello.
Oh man, if I get her talking, she'll never stop.
Right on. So listen, I told you we were going to talk about alternative technology and treatments to cancer. Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get you to give us kind of an idea of how you have the perspective about conspiracy theories and people that which I described as normal. That because this is relatively, well, it's not really new, but it's hard. It's new to catching on to some. All the information out there, we've still been so conditioned to get that from the mainstream, and we take for granted people that we give authority to, and we take their opinion, and they're saying a lot of things that I, for myself, have discovered are nothing more than lies, deception, and scams. So, you know, when you're invested into society, into your life, you've poured all of this into it that makes who you are, it's kind of hard to go against the grain and take a different view. So, Daniel, I'd like you to weigh in and kind of give me something, what I'm missing here.
Yeah, sure. And it's ironic that you would want to talk about that. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier this week about that. And, you know, as far as conspiracy theories go and conspiracy theorists go, you know, we have come a long way in the past 10 years, bringing up things like 9/11 and John F. Kennedy and false flag terrorism. More and more people are starting to look into it, thankfully, you know, because of the Internet. You know, we were able to get that information out quick. But I was speaking to somebody very close to me this week about it, and I said, you know, some of the things that we discuss, you can't talk to everybody about it. You know, the Bible says, don't throw your pearls before swine. They'll turn and rinse you. And she asked me, why is that? Why is it that some people react violently whenever you try to bring up perspectives of the world, of worldviews or the news that is contrary to what they've been led to believe? And I said, well, you got to look at it this way. The human psyche is like a building. It's like a structure. And most people build it on a foundation. Now, typically that foundation is given to them, either through, government schools or, organized churches, things of that nature. But they build their entire worldview and their entire thinking process on this foundation that was given to them. And somebody who is a knower or a seeker, people like you and me, people who, on UCY, what we tend to do is, like a good architect and engineer, we go underneath the foundation to understand it. Jordan Maxwell talks about that a lot. To stand under the foundation. That's what understanding is. To look at every little detail to see if the structure is going to be able to rest on that foundation. The difference between people like you and me and others who react violently is that they don't bother to do that. We get under there and we go, wait a second, there's termites under here. Or, this baseboard is faulty. So whenever you do approach people and you start talking about concepts like conspiracy theories as far as, politics, religion, or big pharma and natural cures and things of that nature, you're tugging at their worldview. Think of their mind as like a Jenga block. You're tugging at the Jenga blocks at the very, very bottom, and the conscious mind will kick into a self-defense mechanism because you're threatening their worldview.
Right.
So
now,
go ahead.
Most worldviews are defined from, like you said, a political view or a religious view, and it really locks us in, and we build our foundation on that. And anytime somebody attacks that foundation, they feel like they themselves are being attacked, and I think a shutdown comes on. Now Chuck's in chat, and Mr. O'Celli from the O'Celli Effect coming up here in a little bit later, and I'll give you guys information on his show directly. But he asked you, Daniel, why a pearl of wisdom is a pearl too, as well, that is.
What, could you rephrase? Could you ask that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Why a pearl of wisdom is a pearl? Why is a pearl of wisdom?
Good question, Chuck. The reason that how are pearls made? Extreme pressure from the clamp. That's what makes the pearl. And anybody who has wisdom has to experientially firsthand gain it. And it's not always easy. It is not always easy. You can't really, I always used to say, don't ask a fat man how to, go on a diet or how to lose weight. He doesn't know. You know what I mean?
Well, I might contend with that because a lot of times people, they know a lot about a lot of things. If it applies to them, they're going to look at a lot of information, but not necessarily apply it.
Right.
So let me kind of bring that into with focus, because the cancer industry is so big. Okay, yeah. And first of all, I would like to give a disclaimer: UCY or nobody else has anything to do with what I'm saying or what Daniel's saying. We're having a discussion. This is not medical advice at all. My advice is to do a search for yourself and an examination. So,
right, and I'll add a disclaimer. I can only tell you, as far as natural therapies and things like that, I can only tell you what's worked for me and those around me. If it helps you, then feel free to use it. But I'm not a medical doctor. I just, medical doctors tend to only really be experts in the field of trauma. They're pretty good for giving you some stitches or setting a bone, but other than that, they really don't practice medicine. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah,
anything that I say is. Yeah, anything that I say is just based off of firsthand experience. If it helps, please run with it.
Absolutely. So with that, we see the cancer industry. Supposedly they have sought a cure for a few decades now, since cancer began, and they're using the very same treatments that they've used all in all, by the AMA and approved by the FDA and. Just certain things. And when you start getting into the realm of alternative cures, so-called cures, but I don't like that word really. You're not curing cancer. you're correcting the symptoms. So I'll continue. So most people are led to believe that, these alternative methods are, it's really way out there and only a chance that something might work. It's just like, a shot in the dark type Hail Mary. But in fact, with all the information that's so available today, and a big shout out to Ty Bollinger, the Quest for the Cure. He wrapped up here just the other night, 11 segments. He allowed the 24-hour viewing of each one, and I think they're going to put it all together. And a little later on down the line, I'll be sure to come back with information on where to find that. I might go take a peek here when I hand the mic back over to Daniel. So anyway, shout out to him. Had a lot of fantastic guests and just a world of information. So with that, all that information out there, sometimes it's easy to get overloaded. People get bogged down, and when you're sick, you just want to lay down anyway. So let me hand it back to you.
Yeah, cancer has deeply affected my life. Everybody knows I'm very, very close to my parents. My father's crossed over, but my mother's caretaker, and I watched her father pass away of cancer, and it was an ugly thing. It was horrible, and to see the toll that it took on my mom. One of my mom's greatest fears when I was growing up was that she would develop cancer because she had seen what it had done to her father. And that was something that she really, really thought about. And I want to make the point before I get too far into this, that, my dad always used to say, when the mind is weak, the body will suffer. Health health and healing isn't just material. It's mental. A lot of your thought processes is going to affect your body. What you're feeding your conscious mind and what you're telling your conscious mind is going to affect your body. So I say that to say that was something that she feared greatly, that she would develop cancer. And what do you know? Lo and behold, later in life she did. Now, you could talk about things being psychosomatic, but, what's your mind, you create reality with your mind. If you continue to tell your body, or feed it a thought or an emotion, then, cancer will develop, a sickness will develop. Everybody knows about the placebo effect. You give somebody the actual medicine, and then you give them like a sugar pill or a water pill, and, they almost perform exactly the same because the mind is that powerful. So she did develop cancer, and at the time I was uneducated in this area, and, I watched her go through chemo and radiation and lose her hair and become bone thin and, constantly in the bathroom vomiting, take a pill to take a pill to take a pill to take a pill, It was horrible to see that. Thankfully, they did manage to shrink the tumor, and everything was fine for a while. And a few years later, she developed cervical cancer again. It came back. Thank God, I had the common sense to know to use the internet as a tool. And I was just convinced. I had convinced myself that I was not going to lose my mother to cancer, period. There was no other alternative. It was not going to happen. I wasn't going to watch her go through chemotherapy again. I wasn't going to watch her go through radiation again, period. And they gave her 6 months to live. They said, well, you'll live for 6 months. It was cervical cancer. It went from the size of a golf ball to a grapefruit in a matter of weeks. It was extremely aggressive. And she didn't want to do chemo and radiation because, she remembered, from the first time. And I sat in front of the computer and I said, I'm a deeply spiritual person. I said, there's got to be a cure. There has got to be a way to treat this. And I came across Edward G. Griffin's book, A World Without Cancer. And anybody who's looking at it, get on YouTube, and there's actually a 45-minute documentary based off the book, narrated by Edward G. Griffin. And it's about this doctor back in the 40s, I believe, who was studying the book of Genesis. And he noticed that in the book of Genesis, God commands us to eat seeds of fruit, and we don't. We spit them out. So he said, well, that's curious. Let me look at this. So he started looking at fruit seeds, specifically apricot kernel, and found that, inside of it is a high dosage of vitamin B17, a technical term is Laetrile. And as he did his clinical studies, he found that, inside, encapsulated within the vitamin is cyanide, but the only thing that can release it is a cancer cell. So whenever it hits a cancer cell, the vitamin opens up, the cyanide eats away the tumor. And where radiation and chemotherapy will shrink a tumor, most cancer patients don't die from the tumor. They die from where the tumor ate the healthy cells. So when you take in vitamin B17, the cyanide kills the tumor, but the vitamin actually heals where the tumor had infected. So, I read it. I did all the studies. And of course, when this guy came out with his studies and said, look, if you pop 7 apricot kernels a day, your chances of developing any type of cancer is 0. If you have cancer, it won't go into remission. It will go away. And in cases like my mom, where you have 6 months to live, you have a 10% chance of survival, which doesn't sound like much, but it's still more than chemotherapy and radiation. So, I told Mom about this, and I said, you want to give it a shot? I mean, it's worth a shot, right? And of course, whenever you have a physical illness, when the mind is weak, the body will suffer. But when the body is weak, the mind will suffer. They're interconnected. She said, do you think it'll work? Basically. And I says, yeah, I think it'll work. If we believe it, and she said, I wish I had as much faith as you. And I said, well, I'll have enough faith for the both of us. So we started administering vitamin B17 with her. And one of the other key elements, I mean, it's easy to say that this may cure or that may cure it, but one of the main elements is to keep negative people away. Stay away from negative people. Music, happy music. Your emotions heal the body. How you think and how you feel has powerful, powerful healing properties. Sing. So that's what we would do. We would fill the house with music and light, and nobody was allowed to come in and frown. Nobody was allowed to cry. Nobody was allowed to do any of that stuff, period. And that was 8 or 9 years ago, and she's been cancer-free ever since. It didn't go into remission. It just went away. And, she doesn't even have to see her cancer doctor. They would do scans on her, and they say, we know it still has to be there. We just can't see it with a microscope. We just can't see it.
Yeah, it's there. And everybody has cancer cells in them, and that's part of your body's defense system, I think, from what I've come to understand.
Yeah, cancer lines a woman's womb whenever she's carrying a child to protect the child. And it's supposed to go dormant, but because of the food that we eat, it doesn't have vitamins and nutrients because of the chemicals in the air and the water. We're bombarded with this stuff. That's why diabetes and all these disorders are up on the upswing, because our bodies literally are not getting the nutrients and vitamins that they need. They're just not.
Right. And I've got some really, really good news. I went to Ty Bollinger's Facebook page, and hey, they're going to rerun this due to popular demand for the next 48 hours. So you can go to the truthaboutcancer.com live replay. Use your search engine there, or find Ty Bollinger on Facebook with Cancer Truth, and that's pretty great. They were running them for like a 24-hour period each episode. So, and I would suggest downloading them for yourself so you could review and go back and review for this. But I think he probably released this for ask for donations at least at some time or another. But that's a terrible word. Shout out to Global Earth Guy. He says the G word with a double O and another G on the end of it. I like to use the word search engine. Yeah. No, the Google is kind of a generic name, of course. There's a lot of different approaches to addressing the symptoms of cancer. Beyond the Laetrile, the vitamin B17 that comes from, like you said, the apricot seed. There was before the modern age, of course, influenced remote regions in northern, I believe it was Pakistan or Afghanistan and Iraq, somewhere across that part of the world. There were some people, they ate the pits of the apricots on a regular basis. Welcome, Becky. I'm glad you made it. And they never had experienced any cancer at all, and that's some back in the 1900s. Yeah.
Exactly. Edward G. Griffin talks about that in his book. It's his tribe. I think it's in Brazil. And their currency is apricot kernels. And there has never, in the history of this tribe, never has there been a documented case of cancer. Never. Not once.
I don't know about now if they're, of course, eating processed food. I was looking at, I believe Jules might have posted this, but anyways, they were showing the inside of the stomach and showing the digestive process of processed foods versus whole foods, and it's just so fake, you know. It's not a wonder, because most of us, we have, I'm sorry, I got interrupted. Earth Guy, which link? It's right up there in chat, thetruthaboutcancer.com, and also I did drop the link to YouTube for Edward Griffin, A World Without Cancer, the story of vitamin B17.
Yeah. Also, another one, and I haven't used this for treatment or anything, but I did try it for a while and found really great results. But there's something called baking soda molasses. Mm-hmm. And essentially what it is now I used aluminum-free baking soda. But you just take a spoonful of baking soda, put it in some mineral water, shake it up and drink it, and that oxidizes the blood, you know. There's several people who swear that it cured their cancer. And, you know, they add, I think they add a little bit of, you know, honey or something like that to kind of get the taste out. But I know I was drinking it. I would drink 2 or 3 pints of, you know, water with baking soda in it and felt so energized. I mean, you know, it gets the blood pumping. You think straight. It cleans you out. So I would suggest that too, looking up baking soda molasses on your search engine.
Yeah, for sure. I have actually right here behind me. I can reach it. Hold on, I'm going to unplug this in. I have a couple of things here. All right, I'm going to plug my headset back in. I have some organic molasses. It's kind of good to get the organic, the unsulfured molasses. And I also have some Bragg's apple cider vinegar. It's raw and filtered. And it has the mother in it. It's unpasteurized. And it says naturally gluten-free for some reason on there. I guess a lot of people have now developed a problem with gluten. And my thinking on that is it's probably not the actual gluten. It's probably all, well, it could be. So, but a lot of the grains, of course, you know, being GMO'd and all the pesticides and herbicides and all that. Becky wants to know who's Bird. That's Grace, Becky. That's Daniel's little girl, parakeet.
Actually, that's my friend Sarah's. It's her bird. I'm kind of babysitting her right now.
All right.
Somebody in chat asked how you spell that seed. I wanted to go ahead and, because apricot kernels, because the federal government doesn't want people to know, it's kind of difficult to get apricot kernels. But if you go to apricotpower.com, you can actually get vitamin B17 in a pill form, because the seed is a little bit bitter. What we would do is we would grind it up and put it in boost shakes for my mom, but it's a little bit bitter to the taste. It looks like an almond. But if you go to apricotpower.com, you can order apricots by the pound. They're, let's see, about $12 a pound. I mean, that's dirt cheap. $12 a pound. And you can get it in the pill form if you don't like the seeds.
Yeah, I do a lot of eating a lot of weeds and stuff about. I walked across the field earlier today and gathered some stone pears and picked some different little herbs. Oh yeah, I've got some aster. I haven't tried this yet, but it's supposed to be good for your brain power, and I need all the help I can get.
Oh, speaking of which, and like I was saying, you know, physical ailments and your emotions go hand in hand, right? I'll tell this story. I'm pretty sure I have her permission. Before we went on the show, I was, you know, kind of thinking about some of the stuff I wanted to say, you know, some of the stuff I wanted to hit on, and I watched a short documentary. It was talking about, in the medical dictionaries right now, there's over 300 mental disorders that you can be diagnosed with. Essentially, everybody in everybody in the world, you know, through big pharmaceutical companies and their marriage, you know, with the medical industry, can be diagnosed with a mental disorder. You know, every one of us, whether it's depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar, ADD, ADHD, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And, you know, you and I both know it's basically to make everybody a customer for Big Pharma, so they can use serotonin reuptake inhibitors, put you on all kinds of antidepressants that don't solve the problem. They turn you into a zombie. You don't want to move. You know, so that's their approach to mental disorders. just pump you full of opiates, essentially. And there's nobody that's listening that doesn't know somebody that's on something, for whatever reason. But, that's a huge problem in the world, in this country especially. That's a huge problem, that we are taking the approach, and that the medical industry is taking the approach of the best way to deal with mental and emotional disorders is to basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Sedate the masses. To sedate them. You know what I mean? Have you come across that, Vince?
Yeah, I gave up doctors and pharmaceuticals, I guess for about a year now. Right. On a very rare occasion, I'll be hoping for aspirin or ibuprofen, but mostly, well, I've got some cockaburros over here. You boil them for 15 minutes, and then I've got all kinds of concoctions and herbs and stuff I add and use, chondroitin and glucosamine. MSM, I buy it at the feed store it's veterinarian for horses, but it'd probably cost you $1,000 to go buy that much at a health food store. This is 1 pound. It costs like $10-11.
Yeah.
But as far as people back in the days going to the doctor's office, people were just, look like death.
Yeah.
Big, fat, lethargic. Just look like they're being poisoned, and they start out with one prescription and end up on 5 more before a year's done, and just to me it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and one of the things, if you pay attention, like I know people who are schizophrenic and they put them on lithium, and if you look on the side of the bottle, it says avoid sunlight. Okay, avoid sunlight, like a vampire. You know what I mean? But not only that, but it attacks the pineal gland or the pineal gland, however you want to pronounce it. Those chemicals attack that. They don't solve the problem, and then most of the people who end up taking those sorts of things end up committing suicide. Or, some of your other cases, grab an AR-15 and go shoot up a school or a movie theater. It never fails. Anytime you see anybody out doing that type of thing, when they check it, sure enough, they're on antidepressants or antipsychotics.
Yeah.
These medicines aren't doing what we're being told. Well, so I'm homeopathic. I don't believe in pharmaceutical treatments of any type because I've seen what they do. But there's a book called The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall. And in the book, I was just kind of looking over it. He talks about alchemy, internal alchemy. Most of your great philosophers and artists and things like that were buvegetarians for the most part. The body cannot turn meat into vitamins and nutrients, and only turns to acid. Period. And the Buddhists will tell you, when you take into your body an animal that was killed by violence, it changes your DNA. You take on that violence, the violence and the fear that animal felt when it was being killed or slaughtered. You literally take that into your body. Whereas plants absorb sunlight, so you're alkalinizing the body.
Yeah, right? Life is talked about differently in the Bible between an animal and a plant. And when you think about it, if you're trying to gain life, which would, just logically, I'll probably commit a fallacy here, but if you're seeking life, wouldn't you want to seek it from something living and something instead of something dead?
Exactly. Well, after the flood, God said, "The fear of you and the dread of you I will put in the beast." That's why animals are so afraid of us. They can sense if we have meat in our body. And I was a pescatarian for a long time, only ate seafood, And it was so amazing to me because I would walk down to the park and animals flocked towards me because there was no meat in me, and they could sense it that I meant no harm to them. Animals would just flock to me. It was one of the most amazing things I ever saw. Before the flood, you could lay down with the lion and the serpent and not be bitten because they could sense it. Animals can sense that type of thing. But so that's something that people should look at, their diets. What they're taking into their body.
Yeah, I think. I've seen people that are strictly fruitarians, if that's the right word, and they don't even drink water. They get all their water and everything from fruit. But I think originally, man was intended to, eat fruits and seeds, and not even like the leafy part. Not eat wasn't even required there. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. And there are some people who look at those recommendations in the Old Testament and they think it's some, totalitarian God commanding just because. But no, he was telling you that because he was trying to give you, the formula for perfect health.
You bet. And
that's why that's there.
And as far as talking about not eating seafood and pig and stuff, a pig, of course, has trichinosis, and it cannot even, to this day, be certified trichina free. Seafood, mostly, they're little filters for the ocean, and look how polluted the ocean is these days. We've had the several spills, Fukushima, of course, the Gulf spill.
Yeah.
But there's people who say it's okay.
I'll tell you this, what made me stop eating meat when I did first went there was a documentary, and I highly recommend it to anybody. It's called Food Inc., and it shows how our food is brought to us and how Monsanto is involved. And after that, I stopped eating meat cold turkey, for the longest time. It's horrible to see what they do to these animals on a humanitarian level. You're talking about, for example, chicken. These chickens are born and bred in complete darkness. They're injected with hormones. Most of them can't even walk because of the hormones, make them so heavy. Their little legs can't hold the weight. And they're put into this machine, of slaughtering. And it's just from the minute that they're hatched till they're, served up on the plate, their entire life is trauma and fear and darkness. And then you're going to eat that. That is literally, the Native Americans would say you are what you eat. It's true. America is the biggest consumer of beef in the world. And then we wonder why everybody in America acts like cattle. There's a correlation. There's a big correlation, And taking, when you start to like getting back to emotional disorders and mental disorders, I'll tell this story because it's just an absolute miracle to me. I met a young lady about 8 days ago by the name of Sarah, very, very special. And right away, me having been through like post-traumatic stress disorder, I had that after my father passed, and refused to go the clinical route and chose a homeopathic route to cure that because it's curable. Didn't take me but maybe 2 seconds to recognize trauma, and, pale complexion, weak, tired, sluggish. You know what I'm saying? It's physically and emotionally draining. And then that affects your diet. And, very, very quickly, I wanted to help. She accepted the help. So we went on a vitamin and nutrient supplementation regimen. I went and got a pill kit for her and got the essential, calcium, vitamin B, fish oil. There's a supplement called DMAE I recommend to anybody who's suffering from emotional or mental disorders to help you. It helps equalize the left and the right hemisphere. It's all natural. Helps you to really, really focus. If somebody who, and this goes for people who are suffering from cancer and diabetes too, your thoughts are going to be scattered. You're not going to be able to focus on one thing at a time. And DMAE really, really helps a person to focus, to really, really focus. So we put her on that. Calcium, some zinc, base metals, stuff that she wasn't getting from her food. So we had that going, basically to repair the body and to rebalance brain chemistry. And of course, I surround her with happy music and laughter, things of that nature. But the most important ingredient to any type of healing is love, unconditional compassion and love, for people who are in any type of illness. And in the span of 4 days, she looks like a completely different woman. Completely different. There's color in her cheeks. She's bouncing around. She's smiling. She's laughing in just a few days of rebalancing the body's biochemistry. Just a few days. It's a miracle. Now, had she not met me, somebody who has this knowledge, then chances are she probably would have ended up seeing a psychiatrist. A psychiatrist would have said, you're suffering from, this or that or this or that. Gave her 50 diagnoses, and here's some packets. Go, Now go be a zombie. You know what I'm saying? And so I say all that to say that self-healing is not as difficult as people are, would like to believe. And there's alternative. And I'm glad you and Cynthia do this show, because, there are so many people out there who have been victimized by the medical industry in that fashion. And it's sad. It's a waste of human life. It is a waste of human life. And all it takes is a couple of Google searches, for somebody to get in the right path.
Oops. And I remember to shut the fan off that time. You got me in the middle of posting. Of course, I'm grabbing all these links and as quick as I can and bring them back to Facebook and to the chat here. J. Cynthia Brooks has joined us. Welcome. And she's feeling under the weather. So we're very proud to stand in and grateful. And I love talking with Daniel. He and I have, I think, share a lot of same thoughts and ideas and seeking the same path. So a great conversation as always. And I heard you on with Chuck Ocelli, and Jason Patrick dropped in. I believe that was last week. And Chuck's coming up here after us, and I had that. Now I got to go back to Chuck's page and get his guests. But I'll grab that here for you and just let y'all know I did drop that in chat. Y'all stick around here in about, I think, 2.5 hours. Chuck Ocelli.
He's doing a JFK thing tonight, right?
Let's see. He has Brett Holland. He's an author and host of Friday night of Night Fright Show. Host of Night Fright Show. And he will be the live guest with Chuck Ocelli and on the Ocelli Effect. I'm sorry, I'm talking and reading, and sometimes I get to give myself the Ocelli Effect Award for tongue-tied. Chuck's a fantastic host. He's way too modest, way too humble.
Way too modest. Let me go off on Chuck for a minute.
Thank you.
Chuck, me and Chuck, we speak a little bit off the air, and I'm going to tell you something. He is just the salt of the earth. The guy is a genuine. He's, me and him I'm very glad to call him my friend. Very, very glad. And some of our conversations are some of the most in-depth and enlightened. And me and him, I love going on his show. I love talking to him. He's the greatest of guys. Got a beautiful family. Been through so much. Me and him are on that level. And, he's like me in the sense that, everybody tends to go through pain and suffering in their life. And you can either, let it break you and let it bring you to your knees, or you can take it and go, okay, well, I experienced all this suffering so that I can see it in other people, so I can be used as a tool to heal. And that is where Chuck Ocelli comes from. And God bless him. May the wind be at his back, and I look forward to being back on the show. So Chuck Ocelli is a man. Love Chuck Ocelli.
Absolutely. It was almost perfect timing. I had to step away for just a moment, and then I was juggling the muted mic.
No worries.
Hey, man, we've almost gone through an hour. Let's see. I changed direction because I was going to talk more about some alternative methods to treating your cancer, and we went off towards the direction that I'm glad that we went into. And that's, let's talk about how we can get a person to, how would you approach a person and say, look, there's more ways in this world than what you're being told. And when it comes to cancer for instance, there's just so many other methods. Everybody's so trapped in there. I don't understand how somebody, especially if they have cancer or a loved one, why would they be reluctant to look at other information?
It's funny you should say that. After my mom was cured, I was excited about this information. Once her cancer went away, I was like, oh, God, the world needs to know this. I need to tell everybody about this, And I think I was at the bank one day, and they had I think it was the Susan G. Komen, whatever it was, a little donation jar. And she asked the bank teller asked me for a donation, and I said, oh, no, thank you, because most of your charities are scams. They're not using the money for a cure. It's making some people very rich, but they're not using it to find a cure. And I looked at her and I said, well, there is a cure for vitamin B17, for cancer. It's vitamin B17. She looked at me and she said, she had this look on her face like, I was full of crap. And she said, I wish. I went, no, really, for real, Some people are open to it. Some people are not. I mean, the best that you can do is give them the information, give them the knowledge. But like you said earlier, knowledge is not power. People think, people say that all the time. Knowledge is power. No, it's not. The application of knowledge is power. What good is knowing anything if you're not going to put it into practical use? So I think the best that we can do is be messengers and tell people and, point them in the direction of the research. But at the end of the day, a person's health, be it mental or physical, is really in their own hands. So, give them the information, pray, hope that they look it up, but that's the best that we can do. You can't force people to take care of themselves. You can't force them to look at this information. All you can do is plant a seed, and hopefully somebody else will come along and water that seed.
Yeah. J. Cynthia says fear from big pharma is a big factor. And talking about what you were just talking about, she says she gets that every day,
Yeah. And I was actually warned by, I go to a place called Natural Therapies here in Robbins, Georgia, for my supplementation. And a gentleman that works there said, you better be careful who you tell about the cure for cancer. The federal government will come after you if you run around talking that. And of course, me being me, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? I have to obey my higher calling. I don't really care what the feds do to me as far as spreading this information. I'm going to scream it from the rooftops. But I think like this show and having a show about cancer and natural therapies every week is excellent. So what I would suggest is anybody who's listening, share these links on Facebook. Send it. All your family's on your Facebook. Share it. Send them a link to this show, to other shows, Bollinger's show. Send them a link, to Edward G. Griffin's World Without Cancer. All you can do is spread the knowledge and hope that people listen to it, So, it breaks my heart whenever I tell people, certain people about alternative therapies, and then they kind of look at you, with this he-hum look, but at least I know, when I put my head down on my pillow, I'm doing my job to pass along the information. Hopefully they'll look it up.
Roger that. And let's see, I'm 22 minutes late on the 420 report from the Buzz Beaver. So I have nothing in front of me. But anyways, that goes to cannabis. And, man, what a fantastic plant. It's not all about, and I'm typing and trying to.
Yeah. I could go off on cannabis, man.
Go for it. I'm going to go find something. Actually, I was looking for a specific group over in Ireland, so I'm going to go find them and find something that they've posted and give them a shout out.
No worries. I don't understand. We have that as a Schedule 1 here in America. Okay, you can. I've talked to you about it before. I thought it was despicable that my dad was in a lot of pain, had a lot of arthritis in his hip. And they were so, ready to write a prescription for hydrocodone and painkillers, and that's perfectly fine. He could go down to the pharmacy and get legal cocaine. But as far as an herb that has healing properties, that's in the Bible commands us to take it into our bodies. It's called the God plant. It has so many healing properties for the mind and the body. If all these vets that are coming back from Iraq with post-traumatic stress disorder, they want to pump them full of antidepressants. No, it's ridiculous. I mean, anybody who's all of us listening, we know nobody in the history of the world has ever overdosed from cannabis. That's just ridiculous. I've never heard of anybody on cannabis robbing a bank or beating their spouse or anything like that. It mellows you out. I mean, for somebody who has post-traumatic stress disorder, it is a wonder herb. Absolute wonder herb. It keeps you calm. It keeps you from flipping out. You know what I'm saying? I know that a lot of people that I know who were addicted to, and addiction with opiates always starts off easy enough. You genuinely have an ailment. It's either arthritis, whatever it is, injury, car injury, whatever. Starts off easy. They'll write you a prescription. You pop it. You feel a little bit of euphoria. It masks the pain. It does not heal the injury. It just masks it. And after prolonged use, the body gets so used to it, you have to continually up the dosage. and then it becomes an addiction, a bad addiction. Opiates it's a demon, man. It's a demon in a little pink bottle. But I knew several people in my family, some who had back surgery, some had arthritis, that were addicted to it. They didn't want to admit that they were addicted. And, whenever you start to come off of opiates and stuff like that, the brain it wants it. It craves it. So it makes you believe that you're in more and more pain, so that you'll do everything that you can to go and get it. So when I started to notice this, in people around me, I started researching, okay, well, cannabis is it's a healing herb. How can we use this for pain? And one of the things I came across was you can make a cannabis tincture. Now, if you smoke cannabis, you only get about 10% THC. So I wanted to get some people off of painkillers on the road, and I got some used tincture bottles, with the eyedropper in it, and got a pint jar and some Everclear. You can get Everclear or Golden Grain, very high proof alcohol. And you take about an ounce of cannabis, grind it up really, really good, put it in a stocking, pantyhose, put it in that, drop it in the mason jar, seal it up real good, and put it in a dark closet. Every day, you take it and turn it once, to mix it. The Everclear extracts 90% of the THC. The longer that you let this sit up, the higher and higher and higher the potency. And whenever you're done, you drain it, and you put the liquid, the tincture, in the eyedropper bottles. And a person who's suffering from chronic pain, you just take 1 or 2 drops under the tongue. It lasts twice or more longer than any opiate. It's not masking the pain. It's actually going to where the injury is, and it's healing it while it offers relief from the pain. So I did that and passed it out to people who were on painkillers, and saw them come off of painkillers at the drop of a hat. That's how powerful cannabis is. And, knowing that and seeing how many people are on pharmaceutical painkillers and things like that, it's a travesty and it's a shame that in the year 2014, you can go to jail for this, for something that is completely natural, doesn't harm anyone. But we know what this is about. It's big pharma has a vested interest, and anybody can grow cannabis. Anybody can grow cannabis.
That's why it's called a weed, huh?
yeah. And so it's sick to me, and that's one of the things that kind of fuels my activism. And decriminalization is something that me and the guys at ZenInTheCar.com are kind of looking at this year. We haven't really hit on that. I've written a few articles about it, but it's not something that we've actively pursued. But it probably is going to be something we're going to actively pursue this year, because I personally firsthand saw my father go through a lot of pain that could have easily been alleviated had he had access to an herb that is a miracle. It's a miracle herb. So that's my position on it. Not to mention, cartoons are awesome when you're using them.
There's a lot of good plants that are considered weeds that I use myself, and like I said, I'm off pharmaceuticals, so that's a pretty good thing as far as I'm concerned. I'm not worried about more side effects from something else, and I was on opiates. One guy I met in Walmart, he's all like, "Man, I'm so hooked on these things, and now I use more than I'm prescribed, and what can I do to get off of them?" I said, "Smoke lots of weed." And,
exactly.
T-shirt, make oil, actually. And he said, "Man, I get drug tested." I said, "Ain't that something?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfectly okay to poison himself with these synthetic opiates and stuff. And,
Well, it's like we said the other day. My particular angle of looking at decriminalization is, okay, we can go through this whole process of trying to get legislation passed, which is worse than pulling teeth, but the quicker and easier route is to simply evoke your First Amendment, personal nullification of what the state. There's 3 Supreme Court cases: Marbury versus Madison, Shuttleworth versus Alabama, and Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. And these 3 Supreme Court cases have never been overturned in the history of the Supreme Court. And essentially, when you put these 3 cases together, one is a religious case, and the other one is about a license and things of that nature, which is irrelevant because the 3 cases together set a precedent. And basically, when you put the 3 together, it's Marbury versus Madison, Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, and Shuttleworth versus Alabama. When you put them together, what they say is that the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, is the supreme law of the land. It cannot be contradicted. Okay? It also says that no state or municipality can come along and write an act, a statute or an act. The definition of a statute or an act is only given the force of law by mutual consent. That means you and the quote-unquote authorities have to agree that it's a law before it becomes a law. That's what a statute and an act is. So
that's kind of like a contract in a sense. Then you're agreeing to a contract with them if you.
That's right.
If you submit or stand under or understand, as it explained, I'm sorry, number 2, Chuck. As it is explained to you in a court of law. But let me interrupt real quick. This is from J. Cynthia, and I'm laughing my ass off. She says Everclear, by the way, is good for restless vagina syndrome. So
I wouldn't know, but thanks, Cynthia. I'll keep that in mind.
For the lady parts. And she would like you to come back on air with her next week, Daniel, next Saturday. She said she's loving the broadcast.
Well, sounds like a plan, Cynthia. I hope she feels better by then.
Yeah. She said her bird's a little louder than her her problem. I'm fixing to get on the bus.
Yeah, tell her I'd love to. I'd love to come back on. I love talking about stuff like this.
I'd love to be able to help her out and cure that for her.
Yeah. But getting back to the cases, what those cases say basically is no state can come along and write a statute or an act that contradicts the 10 Amendments of the Constitution. And if they do, that it is null and void of law, not in open court of law, but before the ink dries on the paper. It's a nullity of law. You cannot write a subservient law. The states can't write a law that contradicts the supreme law. Okay, that's what they say. And these cases also say that if the state does come along and write an arbitrary statute or an act that violates the 10 Amendments, that the citizen can go ahead and engage in their right with impunity, which means they cannot be punished. So the states arbitrarily came along and said that cannabis use is illegal. Okay, well, we got a First Amendment. First Amendment says I have a free expression of worship. I look at my Bible or any other holy text, and in every holy text it says that cannabis is the God plant and that we're supposed to take it into our body. So the supreme law of the land says that we can use it. Now the states came along and wrote a law that says you can't. According to the Supreme Court, you can ignore that. You can ignore all of that and engage in the right anyway. So the quicker and easier route to making cannabis accessible is to spread that knowledge and get people to exercise their First Amendment. And the more and more people that we can get to do that, to educate the system, then we don't have to go through some legislative process to get some stupid bill passed with politicians that are bought out by lobbyists. Lobbyists like Big Pharma. We just have to get each and every individual citizen to just engage in their God-given rights. That's all we have to do. It's that simple. We don't have to draft any type of a bill. If you want to go that route, okay. But in the meantime, we have to become we the people, and we have to get back to those 10 amendments. We have to. And you know, that's a part of personal responsibility for our own health. You know, getting, you know, to all these remedies. Me and you talked about Codex Alimentarius. You know, they passed that a few years ago. And Codex Alimentarius basically makes everything in a vitamin shop illegal. You know, now they're not arresting people for it yet. It's coming. You know, they always pass those laws, and then they they start to enforce them later. They always slip them in under the door, and then later on they start to enforce it. But yeah, you go down to your health food store, and everything in the shop is contraband. You know, this is stupid, man. This is insane. You know, and I don't know, Vince. It's to me, I look at things like this and I go, what is going on? You know, why does our government want us sick? Every one of us sick. Why are they putting this stuff in our water and in the air? They want us mentally weak, physically weak. They want us depressed. You know, it's sad. It's real sad.
Yeah, you know, when you say that, some people would say, what? Our government ain't trying to do any of that. But you realize an examination of what government is. I mean, government itself doesn't actually exist. It's not a physical place you can go to or touch or anything. There's people that act in place of government, and as an examination would show, certainly they do not act in the best interest of those that they are supposedly representing. It's very clear that they're in part of a big machine that caters to those special interests, lobbyists and groups, and all, yes, Cynthia, to control. That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, and what's funny about it, everybody knows, next week, you guys be praying for me. I have a huge court case I have to go and defend myself in next week for walking my dog in a public park 10 minutes after curfew. Yeah, I was arrested and I'm in jail for three days and 3 nights for walking my freaking dog.
Yeah, I saw that. And it was like 10 minutes after the park closed or something like that?
Yeah, it was 10 minutes after curfew. I was there. You know, there was somebody in distress. And, you know, the cop came, ordered me to come towards him, asked me to identify myself. Of course, I don't carry identification. I'm not required to. This is not Nazi Germany. This is America. And when he asked me to identify myself, I said, Fourth Amendment, I'm not going to do that. And the minute that I said, you know, Fourth Amendment, he goes, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice. What are you talking about, man? I'm not obstructing justice. I'm holding justice. You know, before you take an oath to the Constitution, maybe you ought to read it next time. You know, before you go around doing that. But when I said Fourth Amendment, and, you know, when they started asking me questions, I just held up my hand and I said, Fifth Amendment. You know, I'm not going to talk. And he says, oh, you want to play the game, don't you? And I looked at the guy and I said, my rights are not a game. And that's the way that we all have to start being. It's not a game. It's not a game. There's a generation coming up behind it. The reason that we're in the position that we're in right now is because the generation before us was apathetic, and they just went along with this stuff. And
complacent.
It's complacency. And we got to go along to get along. And, you know, like I was talking to you about Sarah, she has 2 beautiful daughters. You know, 2 beautiful daughters, and they've been around me a lot this past week. And I look at them and I go, you know what? If they nail me to a wall, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that this stuff does not get put on their shoulders and their generation's shoulders. I'm not going to let it happen. You know, I'm going to do my part to keep them from having to fight an uphill battle. And
Absolutely.
I think we all have to do that. You know?
It's our responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, anybody listening, go to a park and look at kids and ask yourself if you want to pass this crap off onto them, or if you're going to stand up and do something so that they can live in a country that was like our great-great-grandparents knew, a free country. You know, there's a lot of people who think that this country is over with and the republic is falling, we're all doomed, and I don't believe that. I'm an optimist. And all it takes is one generation.
Hey, we're out. Love and peace, y'all. Officer Tarpley's next. Coach Elliott, 2 hours. Thanks, Daniel. I appreciate it. Love, 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 love. Say Cynthia. Next week, stay tuned.
I believe in angels, and I believe in you. I believe in the simple things and everything you do. I believe in the heavens above, and I believe in truth. I believe in the love we have, because I believe in
you. This is Ozzy Skateboard, and you're listening to UCY.TV.